Okay, on that note, I did want to talk about something that was very cool also with the Kennewick School District, and that is that they changed their curriculum, and I don't know if that's the right way to say it, okay, you can Google the articles to get the accurate statement, but the CRT, the critical race theory that has come down from the west side to the public schools in Washington State, and then the sex ed bills that have come out, and last time I looked that up, it was for the 2022 and 23 school year that all this stuff was supposed to be implemented. But apparently Kennewick went through and hashed that out and did their own policy that refused to the whole training the teachers on a critical race theory, and came up with their own policy that says we're not going to talk about that America is racist and that we're bigots, and we're just going to teach history like history's supposed to be taught and let the chips fall where they may. So, man, kudos on those guys. Yay for the Kennewick School District. And then apparently they did the same thing with the sex ed bill, where they went and just started taking stuff out that, like teaching little kids about homosexuality or any other sexual issues that should be a parent's choice. Do you know more about this for the Kennewick stuff? And if not, maybe just comment from the PJI standpoint.
Yeah, so good on Kennewick School District for monitoring, some of those things and taking out what they thought was inappropriate. Again, you have to represent as a school board and schools what your community wants you to do, and so that's great for them. We also at PJI have what I would call almost a checklist that parents can put on file in the school that says my children are to be opted out of these different types, categories of teachings, whether it's critical race theory, sex, LGBTQ issues, whatever it is that you do not feel comfortable with the school teaching your children, then you can opt them out of that. And I will say this, it's important that your children hear it from you. Not that they don't hear these things at all, but it should be taught at home. And what you have is the school and the government trying to, in loco parentis, come in and be parents for your children. And you can let them know that you don't need them to do that you've got that part handled. They can just teach them the science, the math, the historically accurate topics that you send them to school for. So if you need that, please reach out, pji.org, and you can get that on file if you're not in the Kennewick School District or if you're in a school district that is teaching things that you're not comfortable with.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because one thing, if you're not in the Kennewick School District, and I understand, not everyone can do private school, not everyone can do homeschool, so if your kids are in the public school, you still have a way to navigate through this process by what you said. Mm-hmm. Most of it, and I think there was a huge wake-up call. One thing that was good about COVID is that when the learning went online, you had a lot of parents wake up and go, what in the world did that teacher just say? Right. What are they teaching my kid? And so where parents were kind of taking a back seat to the public school system and the teachers there, now they're starting to get more involved. And so if you're in a school position where it's not, they're still going through that stuff, you have exemptions.
Yeah.
And so the moral of that story is just be a parent. Like, have your pulse on what is going on with your kids. Don't drop them off at Sunday school and expect the pastor to be the dad. Mm-hmm. Don't drop them off in the public school system and think that they're getting an education, because wake up call, if you don't know already, they're indoctrination camps, especially when you get to the college universities. And it's amazing to me how many parents are checked out on these issues and they just go, oh, well, I don't like that, but what am I going to do?
Right. Equipping your children with knowledge is the best way for them to stand up against the truth. If your child came home and said, Mom, 1 + 1 is 3, you would correct that and you would show them how 1 + 1 = 2. So don't take the stance that it's any different in any other topics, because then you're empowering your child, and if they have to go to public school all the way through, they know what the truth is. And they can put their hand up in class and say, no, that's not how it works. This is the truth. Or they can excuse themselves. They can leave the classroom or they can stand up, whichever their comfort level is, but they don't have to believe a lie if you tell them the truth.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing to your point. My kids go to a private Christian school. They go here at Calvary Christian School. It doesn't mean that I don't talk about this stuff.
Right.
Because here's the deal. One thing we use this school for, and it may be even better than the church in our current cultural environment, is to bring non-believers to the gospel of Christ.
Right.
And so a lot of parents will take the view of, I don't want my children around these sinners and hearing all this stuff. It's like, well, wait a minute. what are we here for?
Right.
It's not to shelter ourselves and go live in the woods to keep the gospel to ourselves. It's to reach the people around us. Well, here's the deal with that. There are kids who aren't Christians who are coming to Calvary Christian School, and now my kids are going to hear stuff as much as I want to protect them. So what do you do with that? And you have to train your kid in the way that they're going to survive in the world. So that means that I have to talk about stuff that, as a dad, to my middle schooler, I don't want to talk about.
Right.
Now, it's age appropriate. I'm not saying to get crazy with this stuff,
Right.
but I'm saying train your children up in the way that they should go, and you have to prepare them for the culture around you. So just because they go to a Christian school or just because they're homeschooled, in fact, a lot of homeschoolers, if their parents don't do this job, what's going to happen when they go to college or high school? They're going to get creamed.
Right.
They're going to get destroyed because they're not prepared, like you said, to do battle in the world they live in because their parents didn't train them in the way that they should go. So all that to say that the responsibility is on the parents to raise their kids in the Lord and to be able to stand in the world we live in. I don't want to talk about the issues, that as far as the sexual, all that stuff. Like, I don't want to sit down and talk to my middle schooler. Again, age appropriate. I'm not saying to get crazy, but let me just say it. There's girls or whoever that go, I'm a lesbian. So now I have to talk about those issues.
Right.
Do I want to talk about those issues? No, I don't. But do I want my daughter to hear about homosexuality from the other kid at school who's not a believer, and you know what their influence is from their parents? No, I want to give her a biblical perspective so that she can understand what's going on and be able to witness to that kid. Right?
And that helps children to have compassion also when they meet these kids that are
Absolutely.
going through things, rather than fearing it and saying, oh, what is going on there? They can understand what the root issue is, which is sin, and they can be a light to these kids who are acting out and reaching out because they need that attention. And the irony in all of this, especially in the public schools, is if they just taught the Bible, that would clear up all the critical race theory issues because we all come from Adam and Eve. If they told the truth, then it wouldn't be an issue, and they could teach it in a way that was true, rather than trying to pit people against each other for sins of the past.
Amen. And in that debate with the parents where, listen, I get it. I don't want my kids to be around that. But here's the deal. What about that other kid?
Right.
What about that kid who doesn't know the Lord, and they are coming from parents who obviously aren't going to share with them the gospel? Like, maybe your kid can speak truth into the life of a believer from the friendship that, how long are they going to be at Calvary Christian School? A couple years at best? So that's a window that the Lord's given you to speak truth into their life and love them like believers are supposed to do. And then, and the attitude is, well, I don't want you to mess my kid up. It's like, man, I don't know that that's the heart that believers are supposed to have, but.
Absolutely not. And we do get protective with our children, but that concept of being salt, of being light, even the story of the mustard seed, that story isn't just about the size of the mustard seed, it's about the function of the mustard seed. It grows like a weed, and we should be growing and spreading like weeds into the hearts of individuals who are cold to the gospel, who don't know it. And all the children, no matter where your kids go, they're going to see people who have very different views from them that aren't gospel or biblical, and they need to have a good handle on it so they can share that, and people are attracted to it. People were attracted to Jesus. They didn't run away from him, and it was that way that he carried himself and the messages that he had that we have now in the Bible that we can share too. So don't be afraid to share the truth with your children so that they can share it with others.
All right, Clipper, jump in here.
All right, I talked too much.
I was afraid you were going to leave me out. This is too great. So I just wanted to say, both of you said, get off the couch and get involved. My master's degree is in teaching. My master's degree thesis is how much more successful kids are in school when their parents get involved in their education. So, but I want to get parents get involved in their education. To you getting involved. So when I was a youth pastor in Prineville, Oregon, when I applied for that position, I told them, if you hire me, I'm not going to sit in an office at the church. I'm going to be involved in the community. And they hired me, and I got involved in the community. And one day my phone rang, and it was the principal of the secular school in Prineville, Oregon, that I went to all kinds of community meetings with. He said, Brad, I just want you to come to my school in the morning and at lunch and hang around my kids. And so I did. Every morning I went to school, and I walked around the halls, talked to the kids, same thing at lunch. And there's a thing out there that says, share the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ. And if at all necessary, use words. So that means we can do that. We can share the love of Christ, and you don't even have to use words. They just see it in you. And so I did that. And that was so successful in the public school. Those kids asked me to be their commencement speaker alongside Les Schwab, the Les Schwab, and I, youth pastor Brad Clifford, were asked by those kids to be their commencement day speaker just because the school principal asked a youth pastor who was involved in the community to spend time with those kids.
Yeah,
And so I just encourage you, as a parent, as a grandparent. There was a drug treatment facility I went to see as a legislator, and one of the things they used was a grandma who sat in the lobby and knitted all day, every day. That was her job. You know why? Because people who needed drug treatment, who were lost out there in the world, would come up next to her and they go, "What are you doing?" "I'm just knitting." "Oh, well, that's kind of cool." And she would talk to them and she would just share love with them. And that's all she did, was she just talked to those people in need. And you can do that same thing in kids, hearts and lives in the schools if you will choose. Go to your principal, go to your school district, organize a group of parents who say, we're just going to be volunteers. We're just going to hang around the halls, be eyes and ears to help the hallways be more safe. And there's just so many things you can do to get involved in your schools. Strongly encourage you to do that.